Hello and welcome to another episode of the Disaster Empire podcast. This is the Quick Views podcast. I'm Ashley Gooseman, and this is the podcast where we talk to innovators and thought leaders in resilience. And so I am really excited to bring our first panel to all of you, our audience. So please remember to like and subscribe. Really excited to be able to have Bruce McIndoe here from McIndoe Advisory, and then Ed Colson from Ready Northwest. So thank you guys so much and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm really excited to talk to both of you because you are both leaders in the resilience space and you're also entrepreneurs and running your own businesses. So I thought we'd do a little bit of different spin for the audience out there and really talk about that and what that's like for you. So thanks again for being here and let's dive in. So I'm going to start with you, Ed, first and ask you what I ask all of my guests, for those who are familiar with the podcast. What does resilience mean to you?
Resilience, it's such a buzzword in the emergency management community right now, and it's being used for whole community. But when we talk about businesses, I view resilience as it's the ability for our businesses to withstand the events that impact them and have their businesses, their operations, and their people come out stronger after each one. And by doing that, they adapt to these impacts and they apply the lessons learned from whatever they have to face.
Bruce, do you want to add anything to that from your perspective?
Yeah, I think, in my trajectory, if you don't have resilient staff and employees, you don't have a resilient company. And so I try to balance, ensuring that the staff is there, mentally, physically, tools, those things, but also then the business. And, cash flow is king. And so, you've got to pay a lot of attention to that. And then I think, like Ed said, you've got to be prepared as a company to take a setback, sort it out, and push on. So.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for all of those points. And so let's get into what it was like for you as you set up your own companies. What were the initial challenges? And I know, Bruce, you have a long history of this. So wanted to start off with you. And what are some of the things that you might suggest or that you had to overcome as you started your businesses?
Yeah. So that's McIndoe Risk Advisory is my 7th company. And it's been an interesting process always. 7 companies, none are the same, but you do learn a lot of things along the way. And one of the fundamental things that I learned early on, because most of the companies, 5 of the 7, I started as a sole practitioner and then built the company from there. And I've learned painfully in the beginning and then later, once you hire one employee, you might as well hire 49. Because all the rules and everything kick in. Then there's another tier, F50 and onward. But so give that, some real thought about what you're doing and get good people around you. I have a great lawyer through almost all of these companies. I've had people working for me. I have 2 sisters that are married to people that worked for me.
Little did you know.
I hope that talks about the quality and the character. But the accountant, and so it takes a team to make it happen. And I think if you can find some good people and hold on to them, then it's hugely easier.
Definitely great things to hear, Ed. Do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, Bruce is right. The administrative tasks of opening up a business, it does play a big role. And as much as info is out there, you can find it anywhere. I was starting a business, YouTube, people's blogs. Trying to actually do it yourself, it's kind of overwhelming at times because you've got those administrative tasks as Bruce talked about, bringing on the right type of accountants, lawyers, and then once again, then you're trying to find your market and then pitch to them. And it's not easy then to hear the word no after, So owning your own business means hearing the word no over and over again and still believing your product this worth something to the world.
Yeah.
That's how you build that resilience in the early stages. You've got a dream, you have a product you think you know would be beneficial to the industry, and it's just going out there and making sure that you can keep on knocking on people's doors to be able to get your product sold, and eventually it will. But building that early stage of like, okay, am I doing this right? Am I pitching correctly? And modifying your sales and marketing tactics. A lot of that is challenging at the beginning while you try to find your footing.
Absolutely. And so just reiterating what you guys said, you have to be your own administrator, your own marketer, your own salesperson, right? Obviously do the work of the service product you're providing. And I'm hearing also themes of delegating when you can do that. And then when you have employees, when you start to be able to do that and grow or you scale up to get the right people. So all challenging things to really lead, right? And be a part of, and especially in this space that is so dynamic, especially as well in helping your customers. So could you share, and I'm going to start off with Ed on this one. Could you share maybe a time when you faced a significant setback and, in that theme of resilience, how you work to, move past that and overcome it?
Yeah. That is a great point. And I was like, I think one of the biggest obstacles that I had to come to get over, and I think a lot of people who decide to go into business for themselves feel this way, is imposter syndrome. You have training, you have experience, but people really believe me, and am I really the one who they're going to look to? Because when you own your own firm, it means that people and companies are going to rely on you to be ready for the worst day that they're going to experience. But you just have to trust your experience, trust the processes that work. And emergency management and crisis communications, disaster preparedness, business continuity, whichever field or sector you go into, there's a good set of processes in place that work. And once you put those into place as an entrepreneur and take those to the companies, you'll see that they work great for them. You might have to modify. I wouldn't recommend like freewheeling a brand new exotic way of responding to a disaster. But once you realize that within yourself that this imposter syndrome, it will go away because you are a trained person. You know what you're talking about. You can help people go through the worst time of their company and help them to make it to the next day, which is what we're trying to do, is prepare and build resilience.
Absolutely. Any additional thoughts that you'd add to that, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm going to come at it from a different angle. Owning and running your own business is a continuous series of near disasters or actual disasters.
I like that. That's great.
He's right.
And, you deal with the near ones, but you do have real ones. It can be, like I said, cash flow, you don't have the money to, pay the bills that you need to pay, and work through all that process. And that's a very humbling experience early on, back in my 20s and 30s, running into that and holding, hat in hand out to family and others to push it on. Sometimes you hit a wall on product as well, or market fit, and you need to fail fast. You shouldn't like grind it out and make it worse, right? And it's the same thing in disaster recovery or an emergency. Sometimes you have to tear down some things so that they don't cause the cascading disaster to other things, right? So those would be some of the things that I think you have to be prepared. And when I think about resiliency for a business owner and leader, that is your life. It's like you've got to be able to, look at every problem as an opportunity to learn, recover, and move on. It's just a continuous process.
So, Bruce, I'm going to dive.
I'm going to tag.
Go ahead.
I just want to tag on to Bruce. Bruce is absolutely correct. Looking at every opportunity as a learning and not being afraid to be somebody who goes, I need to learn more about this, or surround yourself with people who do know more about it and help or ask for their assistance or bring them on board. So I definitely think keeping a learning mindset is incredibly important. But during those times where you hit a wall or you hit a setback, always keep learning to push through and surround yourself with people who can help you.
And just because you're the boss, you don't know everything.
Exactly.
That's the humbling part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't train to be an accountant, right, that's a whole nother aspect of it. I think that's where you find the good people to help you and the right resources. I think thankfully today it seems like there's the technology, right, to support you is so much more robust. And I think you talked about YouTube, earlier, there's Google. I mean, there's so many sources to at least start that journey. And I'm assuming that part of, being a good business owner is also learning what you're good at and when you can delegating, right, what you're not. So I think that's so important. But hey, Bruce, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what you were sharing around that good network, because I'm assuming there are times when, and I think you both just brought it up as themes, that you really need to rely on that network, whether it's friends or family, it's colleagues, it's clients even that you've worked with in the past,
totally.
and really to help you to keep the business going. So how has your experience been with that on your own entrepreneurial journey? And what would you recommend to others who either are running their own businesses today in our space or maybe thinking about doing it in the future?
First off is you better have family support. And that's incredibly important, and make sure, kind of everyone understands. But at the same time, when I started this a few years out of college, right, my journey. And one of the things I did is I did scouting with my boys. We did karate night, one weekend a month, we went on a scout, outing. I was the only dad that ever went to all the school, trips. And so you have to make those commitments and say, okay, I'm going to pour myself into this, but I've got to be present, right? So that's as the person. The other thing that I learned on my third company and onward was having an advisory board that's a support structure, a resource, have their networks, and some of my longtime friends now are people that were my advisors. And in the beginning, they did it for the love of it, and then in the bigger businesses, had some compensation. And so having that network of networks was really huge. And then you'll always find clients that are as passionate and devoted to what you're doing as anybody in the company. And so using them as a spokesperson and to feed off of and bring good ideas because they're dealing with the problems every day. So that's what I would look at, it's kind of like building this dynamic network that's connected to you and energized and can support you.
That can be the magic of it, or the fun of it, if you will, when you do find those, great networks, regardless of where you're sitting, in your role. But I think definitely as a business person, seeing your company grow that way and grow through your networks. And as you were talking about having a champion, sounds like it's so important, from the clients that you work with. And Ed, do you want to add any other perspective to that?
When you decide to jump into being an entrepreneur and starting your own company, I find first having an advisory board, but having a mentor, somebody who believes in what you're doing, can support your endeavor, and who understands the challenges of the industry. It doesn't always have to be an entrepreneur. There are plenty of entrepreneur groups out there, business associations that have mentors that you can sign up for and ask and let them kind of walk you the pathway to success and how to navigate the industry. I couldn't have done this without the support of a mentor at my previous job, who was a healthcare emergency manager. And so it's really important because they'll help you understand what the industry might look at from a different point of view, or if you take your challenges to them. Some of mine helped me to identify new market opportunities. I never thought. I was like, oh, you're right, I could try that, which was a very successful area that I went into. And then having your personal, you can't be a successful entrepreneur without having a success or having people behind you personally. So as he brought out, making sure not to lose the balance of spending time with your family, spending time with your spouse or your significant other. They can act as a sounding board to frustrations, successes that you have. But the businesses can come and go, but family is forever. Friends and family are forever. So don't ever lose sight when you're going into starting a business that you neglect the important times that you won't be able to get back. As Bruce brought out, going on scouting trips and spending time with his kids as he was a youth or as they were youth and growing up, that's time you can't get back.
Right.
So always, definitely don't lose focus of they call it the work-life balance. And it's even more so as an entrepreneur because you're trying to juggle the hat of so many different jobs. But don't ever lose sight of those personal relationships because they are so important.
And Ed, you were just bringing up about resources, and there are good free resources, and the Small Business Administration is really a great resource. And they have a group called SCORE, something about prior, executives, but these are people that you can go that are essentially mentors for free, right? You can schedule time with them. You might talk to 2 or 3 of them, see which one kind of jives with you, and then, work through with them. And that's a huge, great resource. And also the Small Business Administration is good about helping you figure out how to raise money. And can have funds as well from the government to help startups, depending on the industry and things. So there are those kind of resources out there.
Yeah, definitely. Great point. Exactly. And there is that avenue to go to for grants, right, as well. That can be possible in this space. Well, hey, I want to talk about just the downside a little bit, because I imagine that running your own company as well can have some failure points. So could you guys talk a little bit about maybe a failure that you experienced, and if you've reflected on how that maybe has built your resilience and helped with your, ongoing or future or further success afterwards? That would be great to hear about. So I don't know if Ed, you want to start off with that one.
Yeah. In business, you'll always have failure, whether it is you didn't plan right, or maybe a tabletop exercise didn't hit the objectives that you wanted or the company wanted when you set it up. But I think the biggest part of failure for my entrepreneurial journey is actually what set me off on that journey. Because I had lost my dream job. I was offered my dream job working for a financial firm in business continuity, and then the offer fell through. Through that failure, I took away this one important point, and that is if someone was willing to hire you as an employee to do the job at this company, then I'm smart enough to do this job on my own. And that was kind of the catalyst for Ready Northwest was that failure part of like understanding, okay, I am qualified, I can do this. And that kind of set me off on my entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, so many failures. Oh.
7 businesses. It's got to be 1 or 2, right?
Of the 7, 4 made it, 3 didn't. That's incredibly, difficult. When you have a team and you're doing things and you're making progress, but not enough progress, and coming to that decision to, as they say, fail quickly. And it's hard. That's a hard thing, to go in and say, hey, we don't have, the funds to continue this. We've got a, 2-month runway. We're not going to get past that. And, we're going to use that for severance. We're not going to use it to run you into the wall, those kind of decisions. And yeah, it's really heart-wrenching and disappointing, and you have to deal with it, do the best you can for the people, and take a deep breath, kind of recalibrate, and come back and do it again.
So along with that, just looking at today's very dynamic and rapidly changing landscape, and Bruce, you might say it's always been that way. I don't know. But I think adaptability is definitely crucial. And so how have you embraced change in the industry, and how do you, as someone providing a service, right, to customers, how do you stay up with that change, and how do you stay resilient amidst all of those uncertainties?
Sure. So I think, my mantra has always been as a continuous learner. and I would say, and curious. When I look at things, I mean, my background is I'm a high energy physicist, right? And I went to Johns Hopkins for grad school, decided to flip to computer science, a master's in computer science. Had an opportunity for 4 great years while I was getting my master's to work at NASA doing, space stuff. And, but shifted then to the whole technology and kind of went from there. And so I think it's that, it's like, and that change is constant, right? So, you always, I love always kind of looking down and saying, where's the puck going to be next? Because that's what we want to work toward. If we work where it is today, then by the time we get it out, it's the rear view mirror, right? And diversity of perspectives, when you're saying where is it going to be, it's the same as when I was in the intelligence community. It's like, you have good instincts or a good analysis, but multiple perspectives, eat that for lunch. And so, work with your team and, bring them together and look at what's happening out there and then come to a consensus. Then everyone's kind of agreeing that that's where we need to be. And now let's get there, right? How to stay above, at things. And, I was fortunate when I worked back in the 90s in artificial intelligence, and we called them ANNs, artificial neural networks. And so it's been fun in the last couple of years to kind of brush all that off and see that it's really all the same, just, more scale than we had. So it's been fun to kind of, get into that part of it and help people know that it's just math, right? There's no consciousness, there's no knowledge, it's just numbers and math. So.
That's a great reminder. As we're definitely in the AI, boom right now.
Oh, yeah. When you say about change, I'll tell you that I would say pretty much, the Ukraine war, even if you think about when it actually started, but, since then, just the world order and then now the technology explosion about what kind of the new electricity, right? I mean, AI is going to permeate everything, just like when we went from steam to electricity. We are in this massive amount of change and where we had stability for, 50 years, right? Relative stability. So it's a daunting time to absorb all that.
Yeah, so. I agree. It's definitely got to be transformative. And anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, when I started in 2016, not many companies wanted emergency management services. Blessing was required. A lot of different industries didn't see it as something that they particularly needed. But now, with the pandemic, with the frequency of disasters that we're seeing, now we're starting to definitely see industries I never saw or thought would be needing emergency managers or even creating the departments. Manufacturing, food and beverage, companies are having emergency management coordinators come on board. And so I think it's really important as we adapt to it to also bring out that we continually instruct as well. We keep teaching industry and business leaders why they need this type of emergency training or this emergency planning, because emergency management, disaster preparedness, crisis communications, business continuity, however we want to say which department is within a business, it's not a profit center directly. It doesn't bring money. It doesn't sell things. But what we do is we save things that allow us then as a company to keep making money. And so it's important to share that information with business leaders, the reason why they should invest in a program of emergency management.
I love when you say departments, because I mentor companies and people out there, and I always remind them that 99 point something % of the companies that are in the United States are less than 100 people. So it's this continuity, if you're lucky.
Exactly. And that makes both of you really a role model in my estimation. You are the face of the work that we all do out there. And so how do you keep your own resilience and how do you really shine and bring that through to the customers that you serve as well?
Go ahead, Ed.
Thinking about it, first off, Resilience in disasters, uh, it's a growth industry, I guess we could say.
Mhm.
With climate change, the frequency of disasters, the intensity of disasters happening, the duration of disasters, and recovery taking longer. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur and want to jump in this, there's a perfect opportunity to really find your niche, whichever one you want to jump into. You have the training, you have the knowledge, and so it just knock on a business's door and say, "Hey, can I develop an emergency plan for you?" They could absolutely do it themselves, just like companies can absolutely do their own accounting or or their legal documents. But that's the reason why there are experts in the field to assist those companies. For anybody wanting to be an aspiring entrepreneur who's versed in emergency management, you are that expert they can look to. So don't let fear stop you. It's okay to be afraid. It might and it might not work out. You could try it for 2 years and realize the entrepreneur life isn't for me. But when you walk away after that time frame, you've tried it, you've learned from it, you've made new connections, you've learned new skills, and to me, that is incredibly worth it.
That's excellent points. Bruce, what would you add to that?
I guess maybe some life experience, and I hope people take this to heart. But when I started in martial arts, and when you get hit the first time or multiple first times, that's shocking. And it really can upset your equilibrium. And it's like, wow, that's not nice, right? And so, you live through that. But then as you do more martial arts, you get skills to deflect that, but you're still taking hits, but you build a resilience to that, right? You don't get shocked and like fade away. You actually can stand your ground and recover quickly and parry and move. And ultimately, when you can get to higher levels, you don't get hit very often, but you still have that in your body that says, if I do get hit, fine, I just keep on, I work through it. So I think it's like that in business. It's like, you got to keep going. You got to keep, getting hit. You got to keep, figuring out how do you recover from that? How do you, do better next time? How do I okay, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to have this conversation, right?
Learn how to weave so I don't get hit. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I really feel like it is just getting into the game and taking those knocks and learning from them and getting better and winning. So,
absolutely.
Bruce has seen it all, so his advice is right on par.
I know he has stories. Hopefully we'll get to share them with each other in person at some point. Well, hey, I wanted to thank you both for coming on. And then I wanted to ask, was there anything else that you wanted to share on this topic before we wrap up today? Either one of you can jump in.
Sure, absolutely.
Purple.
Resilience is important. That's what we're going to see moving forward. Businesses and organizations need to adapt to the changing conditions. It can be done. And for this new wave of emergency managers coming up and seeing all that's available for them, take advantage of it and do the best that they possibly can.
Don't, be scared, but don't let it hinder you. Number one. Number two, services are a lot easier to survive on if you're starting from ground than products. And so I would say to get out there and get the business acumen delivering services, and you can, depending on your rate, but you could work half time and do okay, right? And then the other thing that is so important is you've got to allocate time to address what's going to come next versus totally focusing your time on delivering that plan or exercise or whatever you're doing. So you've got to build in every week allocated time to build that pipeline so you don't work hard and then you have no work for a month, right? So I would say those things. I think, just get in there, do it, talk to people, do some projects, and just keep that going and see how it feels and, build on it.
That's great strategic thinking, definitely. And the key, I think, to running any business and keeping it going. So It definitely sounds critical.
Yeah.
Well, hey, for the audience, I've had both of these gentlemen on my podcast, so I'll make sure to link. They've been here individually, so I'll link to those if you want to check those out. And I want to give you both just, a quick 1-minute overview for folks who don't know you. Can you just share what your services are and what your business is today? And I'll start with Bruce on that one. How can people reach out to you?
Yeah. So, LinkedIn and McIndoe riskadvisory.com. And, I've enjoyed now through my career being able to work with executives and companies to help them revision this whole area of what, the alphabet soup of business continuity, DR, EM, CM, EHS, TRM, and so really helping companies actually institutionalize what they did during COVID, right? They brought everybody together as a team. Let's institutionalize that. Don't just let them fade off into the silos, right? And so that's what I do primarily, and then help others with their companies.
Excellent. And so reach out to Bruce if you need any of that help. And Ed, Ready Northwest, please share what that's all about. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can also find me on LinkedIn as well. And my company is readinessnorthwest.com. We are an emergency management consulting firm. We do all phases of emergency management. Businesses and organizations and nonprofits develop an emergency management program to be ready for whatever comes to mind.
Excellent. And so we'll link to your profiles and to your websites as well. And I want to thank you both for coming on and sharing your experiences, because not everyone does that. And really appreciate it and wish both of you all of the success in the new year.
And beyond.
And beyond, of course. And keep going. Work that Bruce is talking about. So very much key. Thank you guys so much. So great to talk to you.
Thanks a lot.